Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jason and you're watching Jason Jensen Trains. In today's video, we are back working on the new section of the HO scale layout. Today we're going to be building a structure that fits right here, that's going to fill in this entire hole and give us some height. Now the structure is from carolinacraftsmankits.com. I'm really excited about it. I've been waiting patiently, just trying to find the right building to go in this section that sort of goes along with what I've already got built here. All right, well, we have a lot to do, so let's get to it. Okay, before we get started today, I wanted to show you my new mat. Now, with the amount of building that I do, I get probably 10 to 12 months out of one of these. I wash them probably after every build, but eventually they just get really stained and cut up. So I just buy another one. And this one came from Michael's Craft Store. Okay, well, for today's project, we are building a kit from Carolina Craftsman Kits. We're going to divide this into two because it actually sits on a slant. And the good thing about this is that where this sits on the layout, we don't have to build the backside because it goes right up against a rock cliff. So that leaves us some extra material for some future kit bashing. Okay, for the brick structure, I cut a little bit off of each side. I didn't need it to be as wide as it was. I needed it just a little bit shorter. So then I matched the other end wall to the front and cut that off. So now these match, and we're using this wall section. This will go here, and this will go here. And then we'll just cut a piece of cardboard for the back wall. So as you can see, I've already got it braced. Now we'll brace the clapboard walls. So this is the side wall that I'm using. And we have two ends. Okay, all of our bracing is done. I did want to point out that on these two walls, I put a piece of bracing all the way up the center. You can see it goes right through the door and the window. So after our wall is stained and painted, then we can just take our saw and cut those out. This way there's no chance of those walls warping. For our stain, we're going to use Shadow Gray, and it is from besttrains.com. While I was waiting for all of the wood to dry, I took my old mat and I cut 5 inches off of it. And I'll use that right there on the end, and I'll try to do all of my cutting on this. And maybe that'll prolong the life of my new mat. Okay, for our wall color, I picked up a new color that I haven't used before called Thicket. Always fun to try new colors. So I want my doors and windows to be a little darker, and even the trim. So what I'm going to do is go over them with a acrylic filter from Ammo, and this one is called Green Black. Okay, so that dried. I actually used my hair dryer on it. Now, just because I want to play around with these, I am going to use another filter called Starship Filth. Now we need to get our windows put in, so we need to go in and cut that bracing away. Okay, well, as you can see, I've assembled all the walls. I added the roof cards and added shingles. The gray shingles were provided in the kit, and I didn't do anything to them prior to gluing them on. Once they were glued on, I took my X-Acto knife and randomly lifted some. I then took two different pigments, City Dark Dust and Farm Dark Earth, and simply applied some weathering. I then took light gray dry brush paint and dry brushed over all of the shingles. All the strip wood is provided in the kit to build the staircase. I added nail holes to mine and then some rust. So for the nail holes, I used a very thin black pen, 0.005. I then brushed on medium rust pigment. Then with a very fine brush in a lot of water, I brushed on old rust. I want to take a moment to answer a question that I get asked a lot, and that is, how does ammo compare to other paints and weathering products? And I will say that I model almost every single day. And at one point, I had a wide variety of paints and weathering products. I now strictly use ammo because I love how consistent they are. You could have 10 bottles of the same color, the same product, and the color will match in all 10 bottles. It will be the same thickness, extremely consistent. And I have not found that with other companies. And another thing is how well the products all work together. So you have acrylic paints, you have shaders, you have filters, oil brushers, streakers, on and on. You have paints that are for figures and maybe more detail parts, but they all work so well together. And there's tons of videos showing you and explaining to you how to combine them. And if there's a question that you have that's maybe not in a video, they have a Facebook group, and you can go to the group and ask specific questions, and they are so good at getting back to you right away with an answer to help you. Excellent customer service. Now, as far as ordering product, you can order it directly from Ammo, or if you would rather order from a distributor here in the US, you can do a Google search for companies that carry it. I have two recommendations. For those of you living on the East Coast, there is a distributor called Spray Gunner, and I believe they're in Florida. Now, for those of you on the West Coast, there's a distributor called Andy's Hobby Headquarters, and they are in Arizona. These products are just incredible. I am not bad-mouthing the other companies that are out there. I am just giving you my opinion on what I have found with using all the products. The owner, Mig Jimenez, has I think 20 years experience in producing these products. Here is their catalog for the 2021. Tons of product. Here are all their dry brush paints. You can see a lot of different colors. Shaders. You can buy sets. On and on. They just have so many incredible products. So many products for weathering. Products for doing scenery. For mud, water. Airbrushes and airbrush accessories and parts. And then books and magazines on how to use the product. Just incredible. Just an incredible company. Like I said, 20 years experience. In my opinion, it's just the best. I also wanted to mention that the ammo company donates so much money every year to hospitals and to the fight against cancer. So just another great reason to support ammo. Okay, so I've ran into a little bit of a snag. I cut down the walls so that this building would fit in a certain area on my layout. Well, I hadn't thought about the roof, and everything is pre-cut for this size. Well, as you can see, it's way too big now. So I need to figure out how to cut this down, and then how to cut down this piece to fit on top of it. So we'll have to cut out the center so that we can still have two dormers. They'll just be closer together. So I'm going to paint my brick, and I went over this in my last video, but I'm using tangerine, terracotta, burnt orange, and brick red. And notice, they're not ammo paints. They're inexpensive craft paint. So use whatever works for you. Always remember just to have fun with this hobby. It's your hobby. Use what you've got, use what you can afford, and most importantly, have fun with it. So I just sponged on terracotta. Now I'll sponge on burnt orange. Next we'll sponge on brick red. And I want to point out that I just keep using the same sponge. Next, I'm going to sponge on some tangerine, but I'm going to be mixing it with my other colors. Okay, for the last step, we're going to go back in with brick red, and I took my sponge and I picked off little pieces to make it really textured. And we want to get a lot of the paint off of it. And we're going to try to hit the areas that maybe you still see some of the wood. Kind of random. Now keep in mind it's the same sponge, so we have all the colors in it. Okay, now we have to paint our windows and doors for the brick structure. They're all in a bag labeled main building. So there's the windows and doors, and then we have all of our dormers. Okay, so we're going to paint everything green, and we're using my favorite green, light avocado. On second thought, to tie the two structures together, let's use thicket instead of light avocado. Okay, so I painted all the doors and windows the same color as our wood structure. Beautiful against that brick. Really looks nice. Okay, next, let's quick stain these. I wanted to quick share with you how I do my windows. So I cut all of my acetate to fit perfectly in the little opening. Then, using extra thin cement from Ammo, brush it along the top and along the bottom. And that's it. Let it dry. It sort of welds it together and it's crystal clear. It doesn't make it foggy. It's perfect. I just absolutely love it. Okay, all of my windows are completely done. Again, I used Thicket, and then I sponged on iced coffee to give it a peeled paint look. And then I cut all the acetate and glued it on. And then cut little window shades. Okay, so next we'll move on to adding mortar to the walls. Now, I've made a mistake, and it's probably because I got in a hurry and did not read the instructions. The walls should have been cut at a 45-degree angle. I did not do that. So what I'm going to do is take the small trim and run trim down it, and I'll cut little brick lines and paint it to match the brick. Now, another mistake, and maybe it's not a mistake, it would help if you did this. Extend the bracing, because there is a foundation that gets put along the bottom. So by extending your bracing, it would give you something to glue it to. I'll show you on the picture. These are provided in the kit, and it goes along the bottom, and then you get a textured paper that looks like stone. So we'll cut these the same thickness and put our foundation around it. Now, the reason you have to do the foundation is that the storefront, the windows and the doors extend down, so we have to cut that to match. So we'll just cut that right to the bottom right there. So it's a little complicated, but not bad. It'll look really, really nice when it's done. Now, another thing we have to do is add all of the layers of decorative trim along the top. Now this, we can't do bracing up there because it's really thin. So part of it, half of it, will get glued to the front of the brick. And then we'll build layers on top of that. And we may want to take some bracing and put it behind it to add some support. And then we can put our rooftop right on top of that. So I added some joint compound to my water. Let me move it over here so you can see. And it's really thin, really soupy, because the lines on the brick are not very deep, so we can't go too thick with it. Okay, well, if you watched my last video, you're probably realizing that I left out a very important step. I was supposed to spray a dull coat over the brick before I added the mortar. That way your mortar, the acrylic, the reddish orange does not bleed into the mortar. I forgot to do that. So as you can see, I'm getting orange on my paper towel. It's okay. It just gives it a different look. It'll end up looking very aged. Just be sure you go in one direction. Again, you can see all the orange. So, important to seal your brick first, then add your mortar. So I've just gotten some clean water. And again, in one direction. I'm just going to drag that down and get some of the mortar off of the face of the brick. And in a clean paper towel, don't forget to take a knife and clean up all your openings. Get rid of that extra joint compound. Even your edges. Okay, now we can glue our windows in. So I'm putting my windows in, and I'm putting them flush to the back side of the wall. Then we'll take our tacky glue Next, we'll figure out how thick our foundation will be. And to figure that out, we're going to take this window and it'll end up going right there. So let's flip this over and do it upside down. So that goes right in the corner. Then we'll take our cardboard. I'm going to add to the length of this. So we'll have trim on the end that'll match the brick. We'll have trim on this end. So we'll do the same on the end pieces. We'll just add the thickness of the trim. I know this could have all been avoided if I'd have cut the walls at a 45-degree angle, but oh well. My wall from the mortar and getting it wet bowed a little bit. So we'll take a piece of bracing. No, I think I'm going to use a thicker piece of wood. So I have a really thick piece of wood that I cut on my table saw. We're going to run that across the back. Now, if you don't have anything thick like that, you could simply wet the back of it and use a hair dryer and dry it and try to straighten out the wall. Okay, this is turning into a bit of a crazy build, but that's okay. This is what happens. Okay, we're going to work on the foundation. So how do I want to do this? Okay, so I've cut these little corner blocks. I left a little extra at the end, and we can trim that later to see how it fits once the structure is on top. Now, I'm not too concerned about how square this is going to be because I'm going to extend the bracing down and I'll glue this to the bracing. There is our little foundation. Okay, so I've cut a bunch of little braces. Okay, our foundation is done. I build fast. I get in a hurry. Sometimes, like this time, I did not read the instructions and I just started building it. And by doing that, you run into problems and it forces you to come up with solutions to make it work. The key is to never get frustrated. To just, like I just said, find a solution for the problem. And what it does is it teaches you skills that you can use later on when you're scratch building. I think this is going to work out really, really nice. It's probably not the way you're supposed to build it, but again, I think the end result is going to look really nice. Okay, if you remember at the beginning of the video, I said this structure sits up against a rock cliff, so we don't need to do the back side. So you can see here, it's just cardboard. And on this one, I just have a piece of mat board, and we're going to take the original back wall and trace it and cut it. And then we can use this on another project to scratch build a brick structure. Now we'll have to rub on, after they dry, we'll rub on some of the joint compound so that it matches the walls. Now I'm just taking some sand gray and with a fine brush, just adding some lines on those corner posts. Hopefully it's showing up. It doesn't have to be perfect. Later we can add some little vines or moss growing up the side of it. Next we're going to work on the decorative trim that goes around. So this has to get glued onto this flat piece. Now I'm going to use a piece of bracing that's 1/8 of an inch thick and leave that much at the top. Then this piece, hopefully you can see that gets glued at the top. Now I want to leave a little bit hanging over on this edge and then a little bit on this edge so that when the piece comes behind it, it's a nice smooth corner. Okay, so I want to show you up close that there's an overhang on both sides. Now this side, I had to cut a piece. Hopefully you can see that. And then I cut my pieces at a 45-degree angle. Now I'll glue that on there, and then we'll do the sides and we'll paint them and then glue that on like that. This part is a little tricky. Just take your time. It is a little hard with the 45, but if you have a mat like this, hopefully you can see that there is a 45-degree angle line. So if you match it up, if you put this in the corner, take a pencil and draw your line and then try to hold it up as straight as you can and then just cut it. Okay, so my front piece is done and my side piece. Now I recommend doing one side at a time. Don't try to cut a bunch of pieces at once assuming that they're all going to be the same length and they're going to fit. Next I'll paint these this color and we'll get these glued in place. Then we'll focus on this end trying to match up that corner. Okay, the trim is all painted and now we're going to glue this on. And I think I'm going to come down 3, let's see what that looks like, 3 bricks. Okay, we're going to come down a 1/4 of an inch from the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a spacer. So that'll get put just as a spacer. We'll put that there and make sure that the top of it is level with that. That'll give us our height. Okay, the trim is done. It's not too bad. The corners look pretty decent. It would be hard to do this piece, and I would recommend cutting this at a 45-degree angle or matching that angle that you have on there, then slowly cutting it. So cut it at a 45, but cut it a little too long, and you can shave it back, and you can actually just take sandpaper, like a little sanding block, and sand that, and just sand it, put it up there, sand it some more, hold it up there, and keep doing that until it fits perfectly. We'll mask off the brick and then sponge on iced coffee to make it look like this is all peeling. So I just cut the roof. I cut that much off because I just simply laid this on there. There's about I don't know, close to a 1/16 of an inch overhang. Okay, so I'll paint the underside of this and the edge this bluish color. Before we continue with the roof, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's work on the storefront. So now we have to cut away some of our foundation, put all the windows and doors in place. I put that all the way across just to give us support while we were working on it. Okay, next we're going to glue on our roof. Now, mine didn't sit, there was a small crack on the sides. So what I did was I took my file and just went over the ends. That way it sits nice and flush. Now notice I obviously have a backside, and this wall was supposed to go on the other side, but I chose to put it on this side. Same with this. You see there's 3 dormers. In the instructions, this side only has 2, but I'm going to flip it around. So you can change the walls around to fit what fits your layout or diorama best. Now you can see I went pretty thick with the glue. So keep moving it around and view it from all angles. Make sure it's sitting exactly where you want it. I just got my brush wet. Okay, I glued all the trim on the dormers. Now, I beveled the bottom part of it. Hopefully you can see that, because I want it to sit right down on top of that and flush with that angled roof. Now, because of that, these are a little high, because I think it's meant, those dormers are meant to be higher. So it would sit up like that. There would be space under it. I'm going to have it sit level. So I have to trim off 2 clapboards on every single one of these. let me show you. On the back side, see there's a notch at the very top, right there. I'm going to cut it level. I'm going to cut that top off on all of the pieces. And then I'll get those all glued in and get the fronts glued on. And then there's little pre-cut roof tops. There's cardboard that's pre-cut for the roofs. Okay, I'm almost done with the dormers. I have 2 in the back and 1 more in this back corner. My advice, if you're building this at home, it might go easier if you don't add corner trim. Sand the edges of the walls nice and smooth and just paint them. You could actually even paint them a different color, the edges, to make it look like trim. But it's going to fit easier for some reason. Maybe you're not supposed to add corner trim. I don't know. So just leave that off and put those little slivers right to the edge of the front walls on the back side. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. I'm going to continue and do my last 3. So here are all the little rooftops that go on those dormers. First thing I'm going to do is paint the back side. And it's okay if it's not painted solid. It'll just look like the paint's chipping. Okay, we'll get those all glued in place. And then we have these end pieces that go on each end. And then there's a pitched roof that goes on the top. Okay, the roofs are all glued on. Next, we're going to take Starship Filth, but it's a filter. And this is exactly what we did on the corner trim. And we're just going to quick brush it over those roof tops. So I took a pencil and drew lines on these. Now I'll just take my knife just very quickly, and we're not going too deep. I'll have to brace the back of this because it's going to be pretty flingy. Some of our blue color. I'm using a really small brush. Show you in a second what this is going to look like. So I took some 1/8 inch bracing and cut angles to match the roof, and then we'll glue these onto the bottom. Next, we're making the cupola that goes on top. And really simple construction. You have 2 squares that you glue together, and you glue together your 4 sides. There's a square piece that goes in the center there. Now we'll paint this, and then we have all these that go on the sides like that. But we'll paint this first, make it look like the paint is all chipping, and then we'll paint these, and again make it look like it's chipping. Then we have a whole bunch of braces that go on the sides, and I believe there's 4 on each side. Now, there's one more structure in the kit. It is a long, thin structure that connects the 2 buildings. I don't need that. The 2 structures are not going to be connected on the layout. There you can see it's real thin, but it's long. Let me see if I can find the... So you can see how long it is, and then it has two narrow sides. So it's just a thin rectangle. Now what I had thought was building another foundation and doing, it would be raised, but something like that. I would have to add, I'd want a slanted roof that came down. I don't know. There's that option, or there is a sign that gets put onto the side of the building. I'm leaning towards the sign. I think I'll save this for another kit bash, another project. So for the sign, I'm going to sand the back of it, and I'm using 150 grit sandpaper. You just have to be patient because this takes a while. And we don't have to get it too thin, because what's nice is it already has a brick pattern in the image. Okay, now that the back is sanded, we'll cut it to the size we want. Let's take our sandpaper and let's rough up the edges. We want to rough up all the edges and corners so it doesn't look like just a piece of paper glued on the side of the building. Now we'll take our watered down glue, half water, half glue. While we're waiting for that to dry, let's do some weathering. First, let's take some medium rust. Then we'll take some city dark dust. And then last, we'll use farm dark earth. After showing it on camera, I noticed it needed some lightening, like along the top. So what I'm doing is I'm using a pigment called sand. Okay, I like that better. To finish off our structure, we're going to put an awning on the front of it. So I just took a piece of cardboard, and you'll notice it has a slight angle to it. It has a little like arch in the center. Just to add some character to it, I thought. So we'll put that there, and then we'll cut wires that hang down that support it. Now I've already cut or poked 4 holes, so that when we cut our wire, we can just put them in those holes, and then we'll line them up on the brick. Okay, so I just cut 4 pieces of copper wiring, which comes in the kit. I cut them all the same length, and now we're just going to glue them in place. Let's see if I can show you. Okay, well, as you can see, we are almost completely finished with all of our structures. Let me grab something to point with. We have 2 structures left to finish. This one right here and this one. So these 2, and then we have a 3rd one to finish right here. And then I'm considering building a tall, maybe a 3-story structure right here that would replace that tree, and that tree would get moved somewhere else. Then what we have to do is we have to photograph this. And I'm talking 50, 60 photographs of every angle we can think of, because this all has to be removed. Then the entire board has to be raised up probably 12 inches so that it matches the rest of my layout. After it's raised, we'll put the fascia on the front, and then we'll start to build all of the land. So we'll put all the styrofoam back in place and start doing all of our plaster work. And then we'll paint that, start doing scenery, and we'll do the water all in front here. And there's lots of retaining walls that need to be built throughout this entire section. And I want all the retaining walls to be very different. We'll have stone, brick, concrete, just a variety of them. I'm so glad that I was patient and waited to find the right structures to put on here. I have tons of structures, and I could have just started building and placed them on here randomly, but everything was sort of hand-picked. And I'll give you a really good example. The entire back row of structures, even the lighthouse, everything has a peak or a tower. And then there's lots of dormers. So you can see there's dormers on the lighthouse building. There's dormers here, more dormers, a big dormer, another dormer here, even up here, the style of roof and the dormer in the front. Now this also has a tower on it. So everything in the back sort of comes up to a point and is very tall. So we started out with 1-story buildings on piers, and then everything just goes uphill gradually. So I'm very, very happy with the way this looks. Okay, well, that's all I have for you today. I'm sorry it was probably kind of a long video, but until next time, stay motivated and happy modeling, everyone.